OMG, baby, tell him.
Hey there, welcome to yet another episode of Powered by Backers. I'm joined here by Kevin Keane. Kevin, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Justin.
It's taken a couple, I guess you were scheduled. I had a bit of a delay today, so we finally got on here. I'm glad to have you on here. Sick children or not, we're gonna power through this. I think we'll get through it. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
So let's just do a quick little intro. So you are the founder and CEO of consumer bias and marketing technology company Brainsights. There's a lot more to your bio, but I'm going to leave it at that. I want you to jump into give me sort of pre-Brainsights. What brought you to there? I know you went to U of T. You went to Rotman. You've done some education through U of T. Give us sort of your historical background pre-Brainsights, and then we'll pick your brain about Brainsights.
Sure. I went to U of T, political science and economics undergrad. We
won't hold that against you. I'm just kidding. Actually, U of T is obviously the best school probably in all of Canada, but yeah.
I would certainly say so.
Yeah, well, if you heard where I went,
myself.
Exactly. Yeah. If you heard where I went, you'd laugh. So it's all good. I went to Brock, which is not a bad school, but it is what it is. You can walk and talk.
I got buddies that went to Brock, totally, man. They got a really good marketing and advertising program too. A lot of people in my industry, definitely.
Yeah, I took phys ed personally, so completely different walk of life. But anyways, that was many, almost 20 years ago now I graduated. So it's been a while. So anyways, tell us. So you went to U of T. What's the story?
And then went to moved over to England and Ireland for 4 years. Did a MBA at Trinity College in Dublin.
Wow.
Worked in advertising and media in London. Then moved back to Toronto about 10 years ago to work for WPP, which is a big advertising kind of agency holding group. Basically running analytics, data modeling for marketing departments, big brands, and then about 7 years ago left there to start Brainsights and build that up over the years.
So what was it like being? I'll just touch on Ireland. I have a little bit of Irish in me. What was it like living in Dublin? A few pints. Awesome.
Yeah, of course.
I've been there. Last time I was there was, I think, pre-drinking age. So long time ago. But so interesting to be over there and spend some time.
Oh yeah. Rainy, but also cozy,
right.
Like definitely a few pints.
Yeah.
Really, really good social atmosphere for sure. And then Trinity is just like, it's like out of a Harry Potter movie.
Is it?
You know what I mean?
I can picture it like just vines all over overgrown. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's like more than 400 years old. So
wow.
You're just, you're studying in this place and it's like, it's just beautiful. So
Kings of England, or like there's been, prehistory, or I don't know, the Middle Ages where people studied there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. That's cool. I'd love to hear some stories about that, maybe over a beer a different time, but
totally.
Probably I'm sure there's some interesting things. So Brainsights. So you talked about more the advertising analytics, right?
Yeah.
So Brainsights kind of is a spin-off of that, and then obviously doing it on your own. I'm always interested to hear what was the kind of catalyst to inspire you, if you will, or force you, or to kind of go from comfy cushy. You talked about being comfy cushy in Dublin, but like cozy in sort of corporate to the crazy hairy, which we all know as entrepreneurs is a Tuesday. Of running your own business. What was that? What forced you, or what was your inspiration?
Yeah. Well, there's push-pull, right? So and I think that happens with a lot of entrepreneurs that come out of kind of corporate world, right? Is that, they're pulled by, an idea that's out there, like they're pulled by this feeling of autonomy and just pursuing a dream and pursuing an idea and just really sweating that and giving it the attention that it needs. and then, not really wanting to be working for anybody else. And so, that was kind of the push aspect of things. Like for me too, I've always had like a passion and interest and a personal connection to, issues of the brain, right? So, family has like kind of history of mental illness and that kind of issue. So I was always really interested in like how the brain operates. And then being in marketing, like, you can't get around that, right? Like you're really trying to understand what drives consumer behavior.
Right.
And, I'm running analytics for like some really big brands, like as part of MediaCom and Group M, like WPP. And so, even the toolkit that I had to be able to answer a lot of those questions, you got to think about like data. Like it's obviously a huge industry now.
Right.
Even back then, like there were just things I couldn't answer, right? Like, what actually drives and motivates people, right? Because, we're issuing
Can
a
you
survey.
answer that question? And that's probably the $1 million question, right?
Yeah. I mean, a heck of a lot better than I
Right.
could back then. Right. And that's
Okay.
because, we focused on building this consumer neuroscience company that measures people's brain activity as they consume content, as they consume marketing and media messages. So, now we're actually getting under the surface about what motivates, what triggers, what activates people in a way that, a lot of the other kind of like surveys, focus groups, even behavioral analytics, like tracking, like, behaviors online, stuff like that, can't actually get at.
Right.
We're getting those kind of like the pre-conscious stuff, right? The stuff that happens,
So
bubbles under the
neuroscience.
surface.
Neuroscience,
Exactly.
right? So that's crazy. Have you seen the movie, or I think it's a movie on Netflix, maybe a series called The Social Dilemma?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, totally.
So that's sort of like, I mean, you're kind of playing with people's, I guess emotion. I don't know about emotions, but their actions, sort of keeping them engaged and knowing what's going to engage them. That extra
Definitely.
step, right?
It's about understanding, people's biases, right? Like, what is the way that Justin Fox thinks? What's the way that Kevin
You don't want to
know?
Nobody knows. Nobody wants to know. But yeah, okay.
It's this endless pursuit, right?
Right.
I think like Social Dilemma is actually one of those things where like, it really bothers me like that. The industry that's being built unknowingly off of people.
Right.
Whereas, for us, like when I started Brain Size, I wrote these twin articles, right? Blog pieces.
Right.
One is, if data is the new oil, then privacy is the new environment and mental illness is the new cancer. Okay, that was one of them. That's a thesis that kind of laid out.
We need to unpackage each of those statements.
Yeah, it's big.
That's
the second one. Yeah, and then
so let's repeat that. Sorry, hold on. So
yeah, sure.
So sorry, what was the first one? Was the oil?
If data is the new oil, then privacy is the new environment. Mental illness is the new cancer.
Because it's as a result of the new environment, as a result of the new oil. Interesting. Yeah. And so okay, before I ask the question, tell me what your other article was.
So the other article was, if like BrainSights needs an operating philosophy, and that operating philosophy is data respect. And the whole premise around data respect is the transparent value exchange between company and person, over their personal data, right? It's like, I want to pay you for your data. Right? Like, I don't want to harvest that like unknowingly. I don't want to create these addictive technologies that you just keep your, like your fingers on and your eyes in front of all the time. And I'm just harvesting data off of that, like to power my algorithms. I want to pay you to get involved. And I want to, I'll use that data and I'll be transparent about how I'm going to use that data.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So, Brain Insights, how do you guys, what do you do? Like, give me sort of, walk me through 7 years ago to today. Like, what is it that you're able to provide? Like, is it for a consumer brand, I come to you and I want sort of research insight onto a campaign, or are you going more on the research side and say trying to figure out sort of or both? What is how does that work?
Yeah, both. So, we've done everything from attention span research with Microsoft, so helping people understand how attention spans are changing.
We're now all the size of the attention span of what, a flea or whatever.
The goldfish, right?
The goldfish, right?
Goldfish.
Yeah, Dora.
And that came from a study that we did with Microsoft. That whole thing. I mean, it's erroneous. It was, if you look into the study, it actually doesn't say that at all.
Okay.
But that was sort of invented off of the back of that study, which was kind of crazy. So
Ellen DeGeneres, she plays Dora, the one with no memory, right? We'll bring it right into common or current events. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Go. Yeah. Sorry,
like we do that into, we've done like live hockey, World Cup football, Super Bowl football, like live screening to understand how engaged people are with specific moments of sports broadcasts, right? So, we do that kind of thing. And then we've done, studies that have taken people through secret session concerts, right? So with Halsey, for example, we did this secret session work where she was doing a secret concert. We had some participants come through and they were like, basically, moving through this whole experience, we were understanding kind of how their attention levels changed, what they're resonating with, like the entire experience, which is really interesting.
So do you tap people into sort of like neuroscience transmitters, basically, and then
exactly, like people wear this headset. It's a wireless headset. Sometimes they wear eye tracking goggles. We can marry those things together, so we know kind of where you're looking, how your brain is processing information. What are you paying attention to? What's resonating with you? What are you encoding to memory? And then using that to understand people and their biases.
So take a step back. So let's say the Super Bowl. Did you get, say, like a cross section of people, outfit them with the helmets or the caps, and then have them watch the Super Bowl? Or how do you go about doing a study like that?
Literally what we did was we rented out a couple of bars, and they were screening the Super Bowl, got people in and kitted them out with these headsets, and they're watching the Super Bowl live.
Wow. So what, I don't know if you can reveal the actual results, but like, what are some interesting results that you're getting from this? Like, I'm going to take this back to maybe tactical, or, as an entrepreneur, you're in business, we're in business, what are some things that you've gleaned from your research that, the average business owner could maybe use, other than we all have the attention span of a newt, but or Dora.
Yeah, I think the average business owner should know that what people say, it comes back to that Henry Ford quote, right? Like, if I listen to my customers, they were just asking for a faster horse.
More horses, right? Exactly.
Right? Like, they weren't asking for the Model T, like, you know what I mean? So it's about really, just being skeptical with what people are telling you and really diving into real motivations. I'll give you an example, right? Work with a couple of auto manufacturers, and sustainability is obviously huge, right? Like electric vehicles, wanting to limit the impact, carbon impact on the economy, that kind of thing. Totally get that, right? So, a lot of advertisers now, a lot of automobile manufacturers are leaning into sustainability as a cornerstone of their campaign. Right. And so, a lot of people are saying sustainability is really important. But when you look at their brains, like, sustainability kind of ends up being really like care? Not to say not to say that, like, the reality is you're
lying. Actually, I can see your brain tell me you're lying. You don't give a shit about the environment whatsoever. The flashing was when the price showed up.
Yeah, and I wish that the story was different. Right. But the reality is that, and that's not to say, hey, don't do sustainability, right? Don't do sustainable, because that's ridiculous. Like, and laws are being passed that are kind of forcing auto manufacturers to do that, right? But what they need to do is actually like continue to sell the passion, sell the sizzle, sell
Right.
the future,
Right.
but like sustainability is like table stakes. Right? I'll give you another example. A lot of people are getting tired about like COVID-19 safety messaging, right? In focus groups for an auto manufacturer, they're saying, oh man, like I'm just tired of like all these reminders, like COVID-19. I'm just tired of this kind of stuff, right? But when we look at like how people are actually using the site, where they're looking, how they're processing, some of the most persuasive messaging on the site is COVID-19 related safety messaging. So you don't want to remove that at all, right? Again, it's kind of table stakes, right? Imagine if you didn't have it, like what the impression is that you're giving to people if you don't have it. So it's interesting in that I guess that the average small business owner, what I would say, obviously, try and understand and obsess about your customer. But also know that what they tell you isn't necessarily what their underlying motivation is. You have to dig deeper for that.
Right. It's kind of like, I don't want to use this, maybe a bad analogy, but it's like the whole like rubbernecking, right? Like looking at, you don't want to see somebody hurt or in an accident, but you can't help but be like, oh my God, let me look. It's like, that's what, the news cycle is all about. Blood, guts, and gore, because even though people don't really, or they say they don't want to see it, that's literally what that sort of grabs their attention. Like you said, their eyes focused on the warning label, even though they're sick and tired of it, that's really where they're maybe subconsciously they're kind of leading towards, right? Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw the same thing with the election of Donald Trump, right? So like back in 2016.
Are we going to go that route? Okay, let's talk.
We're going there, buddy. We're going there.
Let's hear what people thought or said.
All the polls, right? All the polls are saying Hillary Clinton, like even down to the electoral college, even the betting markets, right? The betting markets, like if you could bet who's going to win this election, who would you bet? Everything was saying Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Our data was not saying Hillary Clinton. Our data was saying that Donald Trump was 5% more emotionally engaging than Hillary Clinton was. And so maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's on average. Like he was hitting
when you win by
1%,
right? And there's that like small margin of error, right?
It is, and when you're playing for the votes of millions of people, it's really about to your point, those small margins. Like there's like fractions of inches between a home run and a strikeout.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's go a little deeper, like we haven't already.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the mental illness part. Like, I think that's kind of interesting. The 3 points, right? Obviously the oil, and then obviously it being mental illness being sort of like, related to sort of cancer. Walk me through that, and then we'll try and we'll bounce off of that. I think I know you guys.
Like if you think about oil, and you think about the extraction of natural resources, and you think about the degradation of the environment,
right?
And then you think about the personal health consequences of that behavior, of that industrial behavior. You see the rise of cancer, right? Incidences of cancer,
right?
If you map that paradigm then to the data economy, the extraction of data comes at the expense of privacy.
Right.
And the addiction of people to devices and behaviors, right? Like that is already happening.
Yeah.
Right? The addiction that people have to their mobile phones, the addiction that people have to social media.
Sorry, I just have to check something here. No, just
no.
I'm joking.
Exactly.
That was a joke. Yeah.
Exactly.
Imagine you did that mid.
Case in point, baby. Case in point.
No, I did that as a joke, but yeah, imagine that you're like so addicted. Like, hold on a second, I'm just gonna. Anyways, but yeah, it's so.
100%.
So what's the? What is like so? What is brain size? What are you guys? What are some of the things that maybe are happening in the industry, or maybe from outside the industry that can kind of come in and curtail some of this, the slippery slope that it seems like we're already on. Like, what are some of the things that you're doing, or what are your thoughts on that? Where do we go from here, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, look, Justin, it's a great question. I think, people talk about ethical design, right? They talk about, how can we design these platforms and these experiences to be less addictive, and people are talking about kind of social media and mobile technology in the same way that they're talking about smoking, right? So like, that's kind of
50
what
years
is,
later, and that's your
yeah,
cancer
and again,
analogy,
that's
right?
that's
Yeah.
part of the cancer piece,
Yeah.
right? And so in the same, I mean, that's a sort of a, like, I think a tighter analogy in that
Right.
respect, but that's kind of what they're talking about, right? And so, how do you get away from that? I mean, like, is there like an e-cig, or is there some kind of like patch
Alternative.
equivalent,
Right,
or like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I think for us, what we're really interested in is at least having a part of our business, and we're starting to really lean into this right now. That's helping people make better decisions by surfacing these unconscious biases. So I mentioned the Donald Trump stuff earlier.
Right.
Like, that was completely commissioned by BrainSights to create a tool to help people understand how their unconscious minds were processing political communications, so that they might actually make a better decision. I'd say we probably failed, but it's not gonna.
We'll see how it happens in 2020, right? We'll see what
it's
happens.
not going to stop us from trying and continuing to try. You know what I mean? So I think that for us, what we're interested in is and again, like, coming back to like environmental degradation, right? It's like, what prevents us from adopting greener lifestyles? What prevents us from, accepting other people, diversity, like, building inclusive societies, right? So, what are those things that we can surface at the unit level, at the decision-making level, in your brain, my brain, and society's brain? What prevents us from doing those things, right? And so if we can get that information out there, hopefully we can design better practices that can improve society.
Do you think it's sort of like human nature, though, to kind of go down that rabbit hole of, I don't want to say the word despair, but I'll bring it back because I think it's very appropriate with that social dilemma. They're talking about, the algorithm isn't sort of nefarious, or doesn't set out to create this sort of miscommunication and discommunication, or I think the words they use, discommunication. Anyways, basically, like, there's so many different truths that you can't really tell which one is right. But what it does is it does show you what it thinks you want to see. And maybe subconsciously we want to see this sort of down this rabbit hole. And then you go down, like, I watched the thing. I'm a sports fan. I don't know if you're a sports fan, but Kyrie Irving, Raptors fan. I don't know if you can see the hat somewhere up there. Anyways, huge Raptors fan. Went to the parade last year. Did it all. Loved it. It's kind of unfortunate this year, but it is what it is. But Kyrie Irving, high profile player, comes out and basically stated that
he's like flat earther or something.
Flat Earth, right? And he was all about flat Earth. And then he comes out, maybe, and I don't know if people know this now, but he then came back and sort of retracted everything he said, saying that he had kind of, gone down the rabbit hole, watching all these videos, started to believe the hype, and was like, it is what it is. I'm not going to judge his mental capabilities, but he got duped into sort of that belief. Whether it's a fallacy or not, I'm not going to claim one way or the other, because I've not done the research and I don't care to. I'll say it's round, but we'll go with that. But who knows if it is or isn't, although people do know. But it was just funny how he was then able to admit. But the fact that he even got down that rabbit hole, a guy who's seemingly smart, college educated, well-versed, traveled the world, is able to be duped. Imagine the rest of the population who doesn't have exposure to people. Like, they're going down those rabbit holes, and then there's no way to pull them back. People are not willing to, first of all, make a decision and then change, or admit that they were wrong, or admit that they were duped, right? So I think that's something maybe that needs to be worked on, is that, people will often, I talk to my kids about, like, Dunning-Kruger effect and stuff like that, where the less, the more you know, the more you know you don't know. But a little bit about something, you're going to believe that you're, a genius on that topic. I think kids are like that in every topic because they don't know anything, but they think
Yeah.
they're experts at it all. But
Yeah.
anyways, and we were all there. My parents used to
Oh,
tell me,
of course.
my
Of
parents
course.
used to say the same thing to me.
Yeah.
If only you knew. But do you
Yeah.
think like how do we change that human nature? I guess would
Yeah.
be like,
I'm
long
not
question.
necessarily. Yeah. So I think, definitely part of it is human nature. And again, is that bias that we have to, react to things that are emotional.
Right. Okay.
I think there's a couple of solutions. I'm not entirely convinced that tech is one of them, to be honest with
Okay.
you, because the set of incentives is such that, why would I do something that has you ignore what's on screen when my business model is based on your eyes being glued to
On
the
the
shit I'm
screen.
putting in front of you.
Right. Right.
I think it has to do with, things like just better kind of critical thinking training, the ability for someone to switch between what they call system one thinking and system two. System two,
Your
it
reptilian
takes more
brain kind of
energy.
thing.
Yeah, going from like that, like the automatic unconscious mind,
Right.
which is what we're measuring, to a more deliberate, like considered mind, which is just like, what's the shit that I'm being fed right now?
Right.
And like, how can I actually like take a step back and make the right decision? Do I want to share this? Do I
Right.
want to like this? Because if I share it and like it, to your point, I'm just going to get fed the same stuff,
Right.
right? Like I'm literally training that
AI.
echo chamber just
Yeah.
to play that stuff back to me, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I think that a deeper growing awareness, and the social dilemma, like I give it credit for doing this, because it's really about enhancing that awareness of how this underlying structure works,
Yeah.
and how you can personally hack it to be a little bit more mindful about the stuff that you're telling it
Right.
to tell you, because that's
Right. Right.
effectively, to your point, that's effectively what it's doing, right?
Right. Right. So consciously, so basically training the conscious mind to, or making people more aware
Yeah.
consciously of what's happening around them, so they can make those choices and not go down the rabbit holes. It's interesting, and I don't want to make this whole talk about the social dilemma, but it's interesting. Even the guys that were like the developers were saying how they have trouble themselves, like getting caught, like try to check email, or they get down the
Yeah.
same sort of rabbit hole that they've now realized, but they still, even though they consciously know, they still subconsciously get, find themselves, sort of down those.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a Pontius Pilate thing
Yeah.
about that, right? Like kind of washing your hands of things after you've condemned society to some kind of like,
Yeah.
like ill fate. Like, oh, whoops, after I've made like my millions of dollars, like, oh
Right.
shit,
Yeah.
like I might as well come clean now.
We
Okay, I
should
get
really
it.
rethink this 10 years later,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a confessional booth that
Yeah.
way. So I don't know whatever. Like I think there's elements of it that annoy me, but the broader truth is that there are these structures that people need to be aware of, the system that people need to be aware of, and
Right.
it's going to, even the way that artificial intelligence is being built, if it doesn't have something that is de-biased data, unbiased data, and that's really what we're trying to bring to these equations,
Right.
is what's happening under there that can help people understand what's happening under there.
Right. So I guess my question then, last question. I have one other question after this, but where does BrainSights kind of go from here? What are you guys working on right now?
We're working on an at-home measurement solution, so
Okay.
people don't have to come in, because right now it's kind of like a focus group on steroids. But what I'd like to do is
everyone's
have people,
at home, right? Is that
is that everyone's at home, and they can kind of tap into that that way.
Okay.
I mean, the other piece is for us, leaning into this thing I'm calling bust bias, which is how can we surface those unconscious biases that we have as creators, that we have as citizens, as consumers, and how can we better understand how the mind works, so we can make more conscious, deliberate, and equitable decisions.
Cool.
And that's kind of where we're going.
Awesome. Well, good luck with that. I have one last question I ask everyone, same question. It's not really related to what we've been talking about, but I think it's interesting for people to know. We're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and just general public out there. If there was one sort of word, piece of advice maybe you could go back and say to a younger Kevin Keane, aside from don't drink too much in Dublin, what would that one? I'm joking. I don't even know.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be one of them.
I know me. And if I was there, that's partly what I'd be doing. But what would that one word or one piece of advice kind of be that you would go back and give to sort of a younger you or someone starting out? 7 years ago, you're thinking about brain science. What would that piece of advice be?
I'd say be the right amount of precious and take the right amount of help, right? So, what I mean by that is don't think you can do it all, right? And I thought that I could do it all. Take the help. People want to see you succeed. There's some assholes that don't want to see you succeed, but most people do, to be honest.
Have you ever looked in people's minds and asked them, do you want me to succeed or not? And see if that could be an experiment right there. Say, put 100 people in the room and say, there's an entrepreneur who's just starting out. Would you like to see him succeed? And see how many of them actually would like to see them succeed. That'd be interesting. Yeah. I like the word that you said, don't be precious.
Yeah.
Don't be so
precious. To me, it's about being the right amount of precious. So
right amount of precious.
Own your thing, own your idea, but also know that the market is providing you signals and feedback around, how you need to tweak that.
Don't be open to suggestion a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Don't be so close-minded.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, Kevin, I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. I know you said your daughter was sick, so hopefully she feels better soon. And let's connect and maybe one day when COVID's not a thing, which I don't know when that day might be, we can go grab a beer and talk about Dublin. But thank you very much.
Totally. Okay. Thanks, Justin.
Awesome. Everyone else, powered by backers. I will see you again.
OMG, baby, tell them.